But it was really funny because it was this guy who was like, he must have had like a tooth fetish or something. He really liked like well-shaped teeth.
Hey guys, welcome back to the KoreKara podcast. This week we talked to Ananya, who's a Japanese learner of over 70 years, who makes videos in Japanese and English on YouTube about language learning and tips and tricks on learning Japanese. And her Japanese is among the best I've seen on YouTube. And in the podcast we go into her approaches to learning Japanese, her experience of going to Japan and making friends on HelloTalk, and her future relationship with Japan. So hopefully you guys find her tips and tricks helpful for your studies as well. But if you guys want to also support the podcast, go check out our Patreon. We have bonus clips on there. But anyways, hope you guys enjoyed the podcast.
Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to the KoreKara podcast. My name is Raza and I'm joined by my co-host Eric. We talk to people of all types of backgrounds about their lives in Japan, studying Japanese, or even tips and tricks on how to learn the language. This week we're joined by a very special guest with Ananya.
Yes, so Ananya is a Japanese learner and undergraduate business student at UC Berkeley, and she's been studying Japanese for around 7 years. I came across one of her videos randomly speaking Japanese on YouTube, and I was like really blown away as to how good she was, and I really wanted to find out more about her study methods. On her channel, she talks about how she's been studying Japanese, where she talks about the importance of not only input but also output, and also shares tools and apps that helped her out in her studies. And today we want to get a closer look into her relationship between Japan and Japanese. But before we get into that, can you give us a quick background of who you are and where you're at today?
Okay, yeah. You kind of gave me a good intro there. I don't know what else to add. I'm currently based in Berkeley right now, finishing up my last year. And I guess business is a huge part of what I'm doing in terms of, I kind of want to connect Japan and the US in terms of business. So that's kind of what I've been aiming for. And yeah, I'm actually originally from India. So I'm technically a first-gen immigrant, even though I came to the U.S. immediately. But yeah, I've been growing up near California for most of my life, or in California. So yeah, that's kind of my background.
Nice. So I guess starting off with your relation with Japan, how did you get into Japan and Japanese in the first place?
Yeah, it was when I was 12. I distinctly remember the moment that it was kind of just like a trigger that got me started. When I was in elementary school, our local library started getting a lot of manga translated into English. And I had a sixth grader, I was a fifth grader at the time, be like, this manga is amazing. You need to read it. And it was called Alice in the Country of Hearts. It was totally romantic shoujo manga. And I read it and I just fell in love with it. And so I found out that there was a lot of manga in that series that was never translated. And I was like, I need to read this. I was so motivated. And there was a game for the PS5 or PS Vita. I don't even know what it's called. And I was convinced that I was going to buy it one day. And so then I started learning Japanese. And yeah, as I kept going with it, I ended up falling in love with the language, the people, the culture, and that just kept me going, essentially.
So was that when you started to learn Japanese, around the sixth grade?
Yeah, when I just turned 13, that was when I fully started learning.
Oh, wow.
I see. So you had a specific goal of becoming literate and reading that specific manga at that time?
Yeah, I feel that was kind of the trigger, but immediately after I kind of started seeing other manga, other anime, and just and dramas as well. And so that media really was kind of a way for me to learn more about the culture and then kind of just keep studying, essentially.
I see. And I guess you were kind of young back then, but do you remember what methods that you used to study Japanese?
Yeah, I'd say from the beginning, I stand by this website to this day. It is tofugu.com. Have you guys heard of that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so tofugu.com, I felt kind of outlined how to start and how to go about studying Japanese. And so I went to them to kind of understand what to do first. And I think they mentioned Human Japanese. So that was like the first app I used to kind of understand basic words. And then from there, I, studied hiragana, katakana, and then I guess I went off from there, I think.
Nice. I also used Human Japanese when I first started.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah. And later I discovered Take Him. I don't know if you know that website.
Take Him is a legend.
Classic.
Yeah.
It's a classic.
Yeah. Hopefully Take Him comes on the podcast one
yeah, we
day.
got
Oh my god. I have no idea what Take Him even looks like.
Oh, yeah. He's a mystery legend over here.
I think his profile picture on all his platforms is what's her name? The girl in the Haruhi. This
yeah.
Okay, I can't remember her name.
I can't remember her name either, but her.
Wow, that's crazy. Thanks to Take Him, I learned my grammar. So, I mean, that his book or whatever, website publication was legendary.
Yeah, I mean, after Take Him, I never studied. I mean, specifically try to study grammar. It was
same
pretty
here.
much enough. But I guess did you make any mistakes along the way of learning Japanese, where you went through an inefficient method?
I think early on, not really. I felt like I was at a point where, luckily I started learning when I was really young. And so I felt like I was literally I was soaking it all up as if I was like a sponge.
Right.
And I don't think I could do that now.
Critical period. Right.
Exactly. And I'd say now I think I struggle with it more because I think that I waste a lot of time outputting and I'm not inputting enough. I can talk about that a little bit later, but I try and use Japanese in my daily life a lot now because I don't necessarily have as much time to study Japanese, but I think inputting is kind of where I'm lacking. And just I just struggle with grammar and nuances too with Japanese. But I wouldn't say that there's a really wrong approach. I'd say if you were to suddenly start doing kanji without even learning hiragana and katakana, it's that would be a wrong thing to do. But yeah, I think that's my perspective on it.
I see.
Well, I guess going off of that, I think on your channel you also talked about how input by itself won't be enough. Mm-hmm. So what led you to that theory?
Yeah, I feel like I've met a lot of other Japanese learners, especially where I went to school and even now at Berkeley. And when I see the people who really can speak Japanese, they output 24/7. They have Japanese friends, they go to Japan and all these things, and their pronunciation is so perfect. And I felt for me, starting to learn Japanese, I put an extreme emphasis on pronunciation because I feel that could make it or break it. The way a Japanese person perceives your language fluency is totally based on pronunciation and intonation. At least that's what I feel sometimes. And so I think that that's sort of what I find the most important. And then a lot of people burn out because they input too much. And they're I'm not even getting any farther. And it's just because they're doing all these flashcards, but they're not using the language. So, yeah.
I think it's also motivating, when you have friends or people you talk to in Japanese, because it's not work. Whereas doing flashcards is work.
Grinding it all the time.
I know. I can't do that anymore. I've fallen off the deep end, but yeah.
I guess when you were when you first started learning, how long were you studying for each day, on average?
Honestly, I don't even remember, but what I do remember was I just was cooped up in my room for hours studying Japanese, and not even 1 minute of it felt like studying. When I was reading Take Him's guide, that's when it felt like studying, but besides that, everything else was just pure fun for me.
Was it actual textbook studying, or was it input of just watching and reading stuff in Japanese?
I'd say the first 2 years I don't even think I had textbooks. Maybe I found some books at my local library, but I mostly used apps and websites. So I honestly, the biggest advice I give people is just like look up anything Japanese, like on the App Store or in Google, pretty much anywhere, because you'll find so many resources and you have to take advantage of all of them. Like it's not one or two, but like try all of them and see what matches like your study method. Because, you know, you see like, what is it called? Like Rosetta Stone and like, I forget what the new one is right now, but there's so many different like...
Duolingo?
Oh, Duolingo. Yeah, that's the one I was thinking about. I just feel like I've never used either one of those actually, because I felt like they were extremely mainstream, and at the time I don't even think they were that popular. I'm not sure, but I'd say just trying everything out and seeing what works best. Like those two didn't seem like a good fit for me, so then I just tried other ones.
Mm-hmm. And like earlier you said how like you don't really do flashcards anymore, but on your channel you still talk about like the forgetting curve and importance of SRS. So does that mean like you don't use Anki?
Oh my god, I sound like this fake YouTuber. No, I'm actually...
But you should do it, but I won't.
I think I overemphasized. Like actually I do use flashcards, 100%. I just never used Anki actually. I recommend it a lot because Tofugu recommended it. I just never got around to downloading the software on my laptop, but it was because I already had an app that worked so well for me. And even on my channel, I mention it. It's called Japanese. It's like this red-looking app. And that app is amazing. Like, I use it every single day. And right now, at least, like, I watch, like, Japanese TV shows, like, variety shows. And I basically just like look up any words I don't know on that app and then instantly put it into a list that I can essentially use as a flashcard system. And it uses SRS as well, which is something I also am very, I emphasize that a lot too, because it can really help you remember words.
Yeah, I use like the same app when I was in Japan, because like just because it had that list function, and I would like make one list per every month. And then just add all the new words I've seen. And I'll have like 300 words per month just like talking to people.
I know. And it's words that you actually know people use, which is the most important aspect of it.
And although that's like an English dictionary, like the reason I kept using it was like, it would have like slang words. Whereas like when I use a Japanese dictionary, it wouldn't have any slang words.
That is so true. Yeah. It reminds me, there's like the weirdest word I found on that app once. I forget what it's called. It's like, it refers to like this Pokemon shock syndrome or something. Have you guys heard of that?
Pokemon shock syndrome. No, that was the first time I've ever heard of that.
I forget what the word is called. Yeah, it's called like Pokemon shock or something. But anyway, it was referring to this episode like years and years ago of Pokemon that they aired in Japan, I think. And the problem was there was like so many like lights. And it was just like really...
I do know what you're talking about. Actually. Yeah. People, that episode got banned because it gave people seizures.
Yeah. And so there was a word for it on the dictionary. And I was like... I wish I remembered the word, but it was crazy.
Oh my god, I can't believe there's a specific word for that.
I know. It's like, who thought that we should coin a term for this so it'll never happen again, you know?
I mean, that's what the Japanese language likes to do. They just have like really, really specific words.
I swear, it must be like Pokemon shock or something. Because right now, you know how people say like Corona shock? I think that people say that sometimes. But yeah, anything shock, Niiman shock, like there's so many.
They're just going down the list. They're like, we have a quota for how many new words we have to make today.
It's like how much like English, like waseigo can we use? It's just like everything's katakana these days.
It really is.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, I mean, we're just trying to go and not do that with our Anki out here. So come on, Japan, step it up. Make some more kanji out. Actually, it's okay. You don't need to add more kanji. That's fine.
Yeah.
We can stick with what we got.
Yeah, that I agree.
Yeah.
I guess like while you were like those couple years where you were studying in the beginning, were you able to make Japanese friends? Like, did you have Japanese people around you?
When I first started studying?
Yeah.
The first couple years I didn't have any friends. Like I was just like I don't know. I had online friends, if that counts. At the time, this website doesn't really exist anymore. I mean, it exists. People just can't really use it that much, but it's called Lang 8. And I used to post like blog posts, just in terms of, things that I'm studying and stuff. But I met a friend on that app, and we used to have like weekly language exchange calls. And so that was sort of what allowed me to use the language. But besides that, I didn't know any Japanese people in my community. There really weren't to begin with anyway. So yeah, I'd say it really took a while until I kind of started building a Japanese community, or like started meeting people in the Japanese community in the Bay Area, which there's a lot of Japanese people here. Like I was not aware of that. Because yeah, it's crazy all the kinds of events that go on here, but yeah.
So do you just like go up to random Japanese people and talk to them?
Honestly, I had to do that the first couple times. Like it was so painful because I was extremely shy. And so I remember this time when I first started learning Japanese. Obviously there weren't any Japanese people in my school, right? So I went to this annual event that they'd have in San Francisco, and it was called J-Pop Summit. So it was this really cool event. They had singers such as Kyary Pamyu when she was like at her peak. Like right now she's not as popular, but and it was just like a total blend of like Japanese entertainment. They brought in like a lot of popular people there, and a lot of the staff were Japanese. And there was this time where I was like, I need to talk to someone in Japanese. Like, I'm going to go and talk to this lady who's like part of the staff team, right? And I was literally thinking about it for 10 or 20 minutes. I don't know how long. And I go up to her and I don't know what she says, but I immediately just go to English. I'm like, oh, hi. Like, I need to get this and this, or like whatever the table is for. And she's like, oh, okay. And she was talking to her colleagues in Japanese. She's like, oh, I think she wants this. And I was like, I know what she's saying, but I can't do anything. And then at the end, she's like, arigatou gozaimashita. And then I was like, thank you. Like, I could not even say thank you back, even though I knew what she was saying. It was just so frustrating. And yeah, I had a lot of moments like that. But eventually, I got used to it, and I talk to people sometimes randomly if I hear them speaking Japanese.
I see. I thought you were gonna go and say that your goal was to make friends with every single staffer at the venue.
Oh God! Honestly, that would have been a better idea. Maybe I could get better after the 5th or 10th person, but
maybe they would have hooked you up for the future events.
I know, but it's crazy because at that time I was in high school, and
right.
I really had no affiliation to that event. But now, fast forward years after, I started volunteering for that event annually.
Oh, nice.
And,
wow.
I knew all the people in the team, and I would speak to them in Japanese. And then now I'm, close friends with some of the people who helped create the event. So it's, total full circle, kind of.
For real, though. So
yeah.
Essentially, you did end up making friends with all the staffers in the end.
Oh my God, you're right. That is crazy. Maybe I meant, it was my unconscious mission to just do that.
Yeah, you're playing 5D chess all along. You just didn't know. You just didn't know.
Oh God, that's crazy.
Wow. So, on your channel, you also talked about using HelloTalk to make Japanese friends online, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, how was that experience for you?
It's been a huge blessing, I'd say. I've made my closest friends on that app. And it also actually connected to my homestay in Japan, because I met the friends that I stayed over at, their house. I actually met them through that app originally.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I think HelloTalk I started using, I looked this up the other day, 5.6 years ago. And so
oh, wow.
It's been a while. I've been using it for a while. And when I first started using it, I made a friend. And we still talk to this day. Some of the people that I met on the app, And I'd say for me, like, it was super useful in terms of making friends. Not so much like language exchange, if that makes sense. Like, at that point, I had gotten to a level where I could use Japanese as, like, a friend. Like, not, like, the person that I'm talking to doesn't have to work too hard to, like, communicate with me. And so I took advantage of like, people because I would just speak to them in Japanese the whole time.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't really get much English practice, which is kind of, not good on my part. But, I kept doing that. And then I made some really close friends. And then I met these two girls that one of them came to LA like so many years ago, and I ended up meeting up with her. And then, you know, she met my family at that time, and so in like 2017, I was like, hey, Dad, I want to go to Japan. Like, studying abroad is too expensive. You know, there's other difficult parts of it, so let me stay at this girl's house. And he said yes, and so I had, like, the time of my life. We can go into that later, but yeah, it was thanks to HelloTalk, I'd say.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, from a lot of our guests that have come on the podcast, we always hear that HelloTalk ends up having, like, crazy, like, connections. Like,
oh, seriously?
We had... Yeah, one of our guests was an up-and-coming MMA fighter, and he went on HelloTalk, and he met a girl who was an MMA fighter in the Japanese scene. So it was, like, really crazy to see, like, how... Yeah, it's insane. Like, I don't know how this happens all the time, but shout out HelloTalk.
I know.
I started using it, like, 2 weeks ago, and it's actually, like, really good. I was, like, surprised. Like, I've made, like, a lot of friends and, like, talk to Japanese people now.
Yeah, it's like a perfect way to kind of get into it. And, you know, when I went to community college in Cupertino, there are so many Japanese people at that community college. And so I would look on HelloTalk to see, like, using the nearby feature if there were people nearby. And then I'd shoot them a message and be like, oh, hey, like, let's hang out. And then turns out they were just, like, in the library or something, you know? And so that was really helpful, I think.
Oh, wow. I guess this is more like a funny question, but, like, we've also heard there's, like, another side to HelloTalk where it's not all fun and games. Like, have you ever experienced any of that? Like,
maybe not personally. I think that so far my experiences have been good. Although you do have to be careful with the kinds of people that you meet there. Like, I guess I've run into, like, people who are, like, a little weird, maybe. And that's about it. Yeah, I have had experiences, actually. I was just remembering.
Like, looking back, you're like, oh no, like, I tried to forget all of this.
I know. I was like, wait a second, I can remember a lot of stuff that went down. It's actually funny. One of my friends that I made on the app was actually a Japanese learner, and she was from Switzerland. And and her Japanese was like, we were around the same level. And she's actually studying abroad at Sophia University right now.
Nice.
But yeah, and it's so funny because we were both talking to each other, and obviously as learners we have things that we have in common and all that kind of stuff. And I just remember we had, like, the weirdest person, like, talking to us, and I had a weird message come to me, and I was talking to that person, and I was like, talking to that girl from Switzerland. I was like, hey, like, this message is, like, really weird. Like, what is this? And she's like, I got the same message. And then it was just like, oh my God. It's just, like, so weird.
Yeah, I guess HelloTalk, like, a lot of good, but just to make sure you're being careful at the same time. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if your podcast is PG, so I didn't say anything, but let me know. I mean, it's not bad, but, you know.
Yeah, go ahead. If it's too much, we'll cut it out.
I don't think it's too much. But it was really funny because it was this guy who was like, he must have had, like, a tooth fetish or something. He really liked, like, well-shaped teeth, and he was asking for a picture of my teeth and my friend's teeth. And obviously, you know, I was like, no, or not no, but I was like, you go first. And then he sent over a photo, and it was like a picture of him maybe in his car. And the weird thing was he basically, you can doodle over your picture. He doodled over everything except for his teeth. So it was like this terrifying image of just like teeth. And I was like, this is not,
Oh
but
my God.
I know. That was kind of like a horror story. Not a horror story, but I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I didn't know there was a such thing as a tooth fetish in Lindsay.
I know.
I didn't think I'd expect to find that on HelloTalk. Wow.
Oh, yeah. It's crazy. And I've also had a lot of friends who have been in like relationships through HelloTalk. Some successful, some not. It's all over the place, but it's kind of crazy what that app does.
So quite the platform. Quite the platform.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess to all of you guys listening right now, just exercise caution, Like, if it should be good for the most part, but just bring out the common sense here and there, you should be completely golden.
Very true, very true.
Oh, man. So, I guess now, though, getting past all the HelloTalk horror stories here, how do you feel about your Japanese level today after, like, all this time? Like, are there maybe any other things you want to get better at as well?
That's a good point. I think I'm pretty hard on myself, so I don't think my Japanese is at the level that I want it to be. Just because it's weird. I think if you're not consistently studying, I mean, you guys may have experienced this yourselves, but there's points where you feel like you're reverting. Like you're reverting in terms of skill, as if it's like you're getting worse at something that you were clearly able to do in the past. And for me, that was like, I think accent, like pitch, and kind of like the pronunciation of certain words. Like I see myself really getting worse at it a lot, at least lately. And so that's something that I really want to improve. But I'd say for me, 2020 was like, the goal was to be able to speak Keigo, like honorific Japanese. And it's been an experience, I had to write my first email in Japanese, like total Keigo. It was torture. It took an hour to type a single email. And just like right now I work as an intern in a Japanese company, and so I use Japanese to talk to like my coworkers, and that's been interesting too. I don't think they expect a lot of me because I'm, gaijin, but I try what I can. So yeah, I'd say my Japanese is good. I feel like when I talk to friends after a long time, they tell me that I've improved a lot since the last time they talked to me. So maybe I am getting better, but personally, I just feel like it's not the best.
I mean, that's so crazy that you were able to go and you just started learning the language when you were a lot younger, and now you're all of a sudden you're interning in a Japanese company itself. Like it's crazy how far a language can take you, right? It's
crazy. Like I've done a lot in these last couple of years. Like I did a Japanese like speech contest. I did two actually.
Wow.
Did speech contests, like other things. I even auditioned for this Japanese TV show where they have like gaikokujin come on the show, and they take them to Japan and like help them realize their dreams or whatever. But I didn't get chosen for the show, and I know why, because they look for foreigners with like really, really like niche hobbies. Like if they're obsessed with like, I don't know, Japanese like fish, like a specific fish, or like a specific thing, so that way they can show the viewers like, wow, like Japanese, like, artistry and all these like specific things. Like I didn't have anything like that. I don't even remember what I said, but it was not that specific, and so they're like, we can't really do much with this. So oh well.
Yeah, I mean, when you brought that up, like a Japanese TV show and realizing your dreams, I was like, okay, yeah, like there's no chance, like it's gonna be something like you would like an actual dream, it's gonna be something like, because if you ever look at those Japanese TV shows, it's all like, oh, gaijin gets to go to Akihabara and see his figure,
or they take them to like complete countryside, like in Akita and something. Yeah, the Inaka, and then, I don't know, they're interested in some, like, wooden, craft or something.
Like sword making
special.
or ninjas or something.
Exactly.
Yeah. Stone cutting, like, all these random things.
It's always the same narrative, but spun in different ways, I think, in a way.
Definitely. Yeah. Hey, just gotta
Um,
go make your own TV show in Japan. That's how you do it.
it's
Break the mold.
crazy.
Help
I'd say one
Japanese
of
people realize their dreams.
oh, that the hurdle's pretty
Ooh.
high with that one, but that's crazy though. I do remember when I first landed in Japan and I went to Shibuya, I saw them
Uh-huh.
filming You Nani Shi ni Nippon e, if you guys know that
Oh
show.
yeah.
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 They were filming this like mom and I guess her daughter, and they were like, "You guys spin now," and I saw them just spinning or something like that. It was just the weirdest thing.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
That show really like makes like Gaikokujin look really weird because they
I
only
know.
interview like very very like rare. They don't interview like the average person going to Japan. They try to find like really specific, like you were talking about.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
one of your guests, like Miss Hanake, like she was also on Japanese TV, right?
Yeah, she was.
Damn, I don't know what that experience is like, but it's on my bucket list. At least once I want to go on Japanese TV just to be able
Just
to
hang
say
around the
I did
airport,
it.
I'm sure.
I know.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Pretend to be like really interested in some random thing. Just like go on
Yeah.
Google, find something, and then just like wear a shirt of it, and then just walk around at the airport. I'm sure like they'll
Yeah.
come up to you.
Like if
Okay,
you're
I-
cosplaying at the airport, it's like 100% chance.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
they're
but
gonna be like,
that's like a double-edged sword, though. That's a double-edged sword.
oh no, I got it. I'll have like a T-shirt that says "I love natto," and they're just gonna be like, "Oh my god."
Oh, true. You gotta pull up with some like natto on YouTube though, otherwise they won't believe it. You know, you have to make sure.
Emergency not though.
Exactly. You gotta sell it. You gotta sell it all the way, Ananya.
Yeah, I know. I'll just have like my cart, and I'll just be eating like natto there. It's just like I need a break.
Oh yeah, that sounds pretty rough in itself. Like I mean, I could eat some. I don't think I can eat that much. You know.
Oh yeah, I know. Especially after a flight, that sounds insane. Do you guys like natto?
Yeah,
Actually, I got used to eating natto. Like
I got used to
Oh.
it too.
I got
Yeah,
used to it.
yeah.
I didn't like it the first time either.
Yeah, but yeah, just having a lot of it though, I feel is a lot different. That I don't know if I'm down for that.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's really healthy. It's superfood. So if any of you guys out there want to try it, get used to it, and it'll be really good for you.
But I guess like talking about like your relationship with Japan and Japanese, I think you said on your channel like for the first 5 years your parents weren't that supportive, and then earlier you said like until like that point that you finally were able to go to Japan. But what was that period like of those 5 years where your parents weren't that supportive of you studying Japanese?
Yeah, I'd say it was mostly my dad, and I think just because it was an odd situation because my brother, on the other hand, got really into Korean culture. And he must have just thought, like, why are my children, like, suddenly obsessed with, like, East Asian cultures? Like, did we do something? I don't know what happened. But, yeah, I feel like it was really difficult because as a result, I couldn't necessarily pay for classes, like, you know, a Japanese teacher. Or I'd mostly, like, buy used textbooks or something like that. Like, I tried to use zero money on my education because I was just like, I want to do it without using anything else, you know? And so, yeah, it wasn't the easiest. And I have to tell you, when I did my homestay in 2017, I had to beg my dad if I could go. Like, it was so hard. Even till the last minute that we were buying that plane ticket, he was like, "Are you really doing this?" And I was like, "Yes, I'm doing it. Like, let me go." Because, yeah, at that point I knew that, you know, you study Japanese for 5 years and it's like, if you don't go to Japan, it just feels like the interest or like the strong passion that you have for the country just sort of disappears. It needs to be like reignited, you know?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Gotta go to the motherland, as we've called it on the podcast.
Seriously?
Yeah, it
Oh
started
my
out as
God.
a joke, but we've just been kind of rolling with it.
Oh my god. If I call it the motherland, I'm gonna get smacked. So That's crazy.
Yeah, but I mean, that's pretty interesting though. So I guess what like because you mentioned you were like begging your dad a lot. Did it take anything like specific to convince him to actually go to Japan? I mean, it's actually really interesting to me that your brother was also studying Korea. That's like super ironic, but
I
yeah, what
know.
was that experience like? Kind of convincing him.
Oh yeah, I had a trick up my sleeve, I have to tell you. What I did was at the time, so I was 17, and so it was right before like applying for colleges. And so I told my dad look, if I go to Japan, I get this like once in a lifetime experience. I can write about it in my essays. Like no other kid is going to have this. Like do you understand how important this is? And that sold him. I seriously swear that sold him.
Oh, that would have worked for my parents too. I should have done that. I was behind. Oh my god, that's
Yeah.
actually perfect. That's perfect.
Yeah, I mean, that was a big one for me, I think. That was the only way I could justify it, honestly.
I mean, study abroads work well on the college app. So
Oh, yeah,
yeah.
definitely.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I guess this is more of a trip, but I mean, it shows that you're a go-getter. So you love to see it on the college app. You love to see it. But I guess now kind of transitioning, now you're like actually able, you like bought the flight after all like the ordeals to get there, and now you're like landing in Japan. Like how is it like kind of your first like I guess month I guess in Japan, and like did you experience any culture shocks?
Yeah, so actually, there's 2 points I want to mention before that. So at the time, that was when I was 17, it was right before I was getting a US citizenship. So I was still
see.
a resident, so I had to fill out so much paperwork for my visa. And I had to, so I went to the San Francisco, Japan, what's it called? Like
The
Taishikan?
embassy?
Yeah, the embassy. And so there, they were, the only people that needed visas were like Indian people and I think Arabian? I'm not sure, but it was so specific. And I had to write out like an itinerary of everything I was going to do every single day and where I was going to be. And I was like, I don't even know. What do you mean? Like
10 a.m. konbini.
3 a.m. konbini. Like, that'd be crazy. But yeah, so I had to do that. And then also, I was only there for 2 weeks, actually. So
2
I've only been
weeks?
to Japan
Oh.
for 2 weeks.
2 weeks, wow.
So yeah, I remember it was like my first time flying alone. And I was like, okay, I need to just relax and just be like, okay, Japan might be kind of like underwhelming. Like maybe like 5 years go by, you have it at this high bar and if it doesn't meet it, you're going to be disappointed. So I told myself to just relax and take it as what it is. And I still remember when I walked through that airport, it was just this feeling like I made it. Like this is what I was waiting for. And I was so excited. And when you go through the immigration, there's this sign that says Tokyo 2020. And I thought I'd be in Japan in 2020. None of us could go anyway, right? With everything that happened. But I thought that was funny. And yeah, like Japan met my expectations and went way past them. You know, it was amazing, I have to say. Like, I mean, you guys might feel the same way, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Well, I just remember like at the airport where you're talking about, like there's a sign when you walk out the airport that says like "Welcome to Japan" in like every language, and it just says like
yeah.
"Welcome, welcome, welcome." But then in Japanese it says like "Okaeri," like basically like, welcome back home. It's not just
Yeah.
like "Welcome to Japan."
That's so cute.
But did you experience like culture shock like when you like exploring Japan?
Yeah, so the funny thing I did that my the people that I was staying with were kind of like surprised by was my friend lived in Yokohama and we were like kind of just lugging my luggage there and everything. And I saw like how the garbage was lined up. Like the garbage at like whatever, like the station or whatever it was. And it was so organized. I was just like, this is beautiful. And I took a picture of it. And she was like, what are you doing? And I was like, look at it. Like, it's so clean. Like, you don't see any trash anywhere, anything. Like, they organized it so well. And so, yeah, that was, like, one of the things. And I'd have to say, one of the culture shocks I had was there's a lot of stairs in Japan. Like, a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Did you guys not feel that?
Yeah.
I think that's why they have like that like upskirt photo problem, because there's like stairs that
was
are, it's
crazy.
literally so long and so steep that it's not possible to not like see anything. It's like
That's
not
a
possible.
good point.
Oh my god. Yeah.
Wow, that's an interesting insight there.
Especially the
Yeah.
one in Yokohama. I remember very specifically. My friend brought me there and he's like, "Oh, this is the staircase where there's a lot of like people taking photos."
Oh my god.
Oh gosh, wow. Yeah, I mean, Yokohama had a lot of stairs, and it struck me kind of odd because, like, it's a country with so many people are, like, elderly. It's like, how do you go about your day without, like, literally
Right.
breaking your back walking upstairs all
Yeah.
day?
But I guess in Japan you have like 90-year-olds like going out and walking. and
Yeah.
running.
They're too healthy for us, so...
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's kind of funny that, like, especially with culture shocks. So right now, more than YouTube, I've been super focused on Twitter. And I made a post with, like, the 5 things that I was really shocked by when I went to Japan. And that tweet, like, literally blew up. Because I talked about the stairs, and everyone was like, what? Like, what do you mean? Like, we thought this was normal and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, no, it's not. Like, it's a lot of stairs. And so, yeah, I think the stairs was a big thing, and the kind of safety they have there. Like, it's crazy. I remember we were at a restaurant, and my friend's mom just put her phone on the table and, like, her purse, and then left to go, like, order. I was like, what are you doing? Like, it's gonna get stolen. And just like, what do you mean? It was just a huge, like, culture shock for me, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, the safety there is always amazing to hear. Like, I don't think, like, both Eric and I, we were just like, we didn't even think twice about anything when we were there. It's an amazing feeling, I guess. But yeah, I mean, the stairs though, that's something we haven't heard that much on the podcast. I think you make a really good point as to there are a lot of stairs. It's a good exercise. I will give Japan that. It's also can get a little tiring though, but shout out to those Japanese people with the huge leg. No, just kidding.
Yeah, and also, like, rush hour trains, like, we all know that. It's just insane how full it is.
Oh yeah. It gets really hot in there too. I feel like that's actually the worst part. It's so crammed and it gets so stuffy.
And yeah, I remember I was with a friend in Harajuku, and he was like, let's go to Shinjuku. And I was like, oh yeah, that sounds like such a cool place. And we went to the train station, and there was probably this much space left on the train. He was like, let's get on. And I was like, what are you talking about? There's no space at all. I was too chicken. I couldn't even go on the train. So I never went to Shinjuku before. So
Oh, no way.
I know, I was just too, like, it's that part where people have to start pushing you in order to close the doors. I was like, I'm not doing that. Yeah.
Next time we'll see Shinjuku over here.
Yeah.
Hopefully the trains are going to be less packed. Yeah, I mean, if you ever seen the last trains, like, going out, those ones get, depending on, like, if it's if it's like a weekend where people are all staying out, they're just all trying to get back home, or they're coming back from work. Oh my god, it gets pretty insane. But I guess that's like one part, like the culture shock, a lot of different things. Shout out to your tweet that blew up. We always love to see it. But I guess, like, speaking to maybe people that you met there, because you mentioned that you stayed with some of your friends that you met from HelloTalk, but were you able to go and interact with any of the other locals as well?
Ooh, that's a good question. I actually met up with mostly friends from HelloTalk during my time there, just because I didn't necessarily have friends who were in the Bay Area and then went back to Japan because I was still in high school.
Right.
So I did have a really cool opportunity to go to my friend's school. So they had, like, 2 days, they signed some sort of paper saying, like, I could be a visitor. So I went to my friends' classes and stuff like that. So I met a lot of their classmates and things like that. And I also did like a cool project in Ibaraki-ken, like in Tsukuba. And so I met a lot of high school students there. I was trying to do like an art exchange program because my city was a sister city with the city there. So yeah, I went to like the city hall and they were like, we have a representative from Milpitas. And I was like, no one's going to know where that is. Like,
oh, that's super interesting. I didn't know they had sister cities out there.
Yeah, actually, a lot of cities, especially in California, all have like sister cities in Japan for some reason.
Interesting. It looks like California's lining it up in Japan.
I know.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, you have to be a representative in your 2-week period. That's pretty amazing already. How did you, I guess, kind of like encapsulating it, what would you say is your favorite memory from that entire trip? Because I mean, it looks like a lot happened throughout that entire 2-week period. And I mean, you said it really exceeded your expectations being there, despite it being such a short time too.
I mean, I would say I didn't do anything out of the ordinary, but I think that kind of when you study Japanese that long and you're suddenly in that place that you kind of dreamed about going to for the longest time, it does feel like magical, like Disneyland, you know? And I have to say, if I can remember like one moment that I just thought was super cool was when I was in Harajuku. I was kind of hanging out with a friend, and when you walk down Harajuku, like Takeshita Dori, there's like a lot of people that kind of, you know, are like, hey, like, you know, people are trying to sell things, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I already knew that, so I'd been to Harajuku like maybe once or twice already earlier that week. And I was like, okay, let's just like avoid these people, like just go straight down the street. And this Japanese guy walked up to us and he was talking about like some sort of comedy club and like we wouldn't have to pay for anything. We could just buy drinks if we wanted to, like, I don't know. And I was like, this sounds really sketchy. Like, let's not like do this. Like, I don't know what's going on. And I don't know what spur of the moment caused this, but we were just like, okay, let's go and see what all this is about. And he took us to the street right off the corner of Takeshita Dori, and it was like this weird, it was a really nice house, like this building, and you go up the stairs and you go inside, and it's actually like a comedy club. They have like a stage and like chairs, and there are already like a lot of people there, and we didn't even have to buy drinks. Like, we could just sit there and chill. Like, we got like vending machine drinks from outside instead. And so we just kind of sat down and we were waiting for the show to start. And it was like Japanese, like manzai and like konto. So it was like really traditional, like not traditional, but you know, something that you wouldn't necessarily see as like a typical sightseeing kind of experience. And yeah, like some of the performers, like it's kind of natural for them to interact with the audience. And so they were like, hey, you, like, what do you think? Like, how's your day? Or where are you from, you know? And they were talking to me as well. And it was just like a really surreal experience. But yeah, and I heard that Bluzon Chiemi, do you know who that is?
No.
I don't.
She was really popular like 2 years ago for like this weird skit that she had. And it was just like, it's called like Sanju Goku, I think. But it's like about like how career women are like I forget what it's about, but it's pretty funny. But anyway, she had previously performed at that stage and she was extremely popular at the time. But yeah, it was just like a really cool place, really cozy. And it's interesting how even though these performers are really like, they're at a high pedestal or like really cool and they're still like interacting with people. So when you walk into the place, they're like, I forget what they say, but they're like, "Otsukare-sama desu," or something like that when you enter. It's like they really respect the people that are there to listen to them.
I see. Yeah, I mean that's a really cool experience. I mean, you rarely hear about like the how those manzai shows go and like the comedy clubs over there. Like I actually didn't know too much about it myself until I saw an interview with a performer some time back, and I mean it's really, they're really amazing. Like you need to have, and I think the one that Eric saw it too, but he was a foreigner who did manzai. So the amount of Japanese you need to know to actually be able to do that is insane.
I mean, the Japanese is pretty hard to understand too of like comedy. Like, how did you feel at that time, like when you went about your own Japanese?
I could not understand most of it. It was just funny to watch. It was really hard. And even now, especially with manzai, they go so fast. So I can't really understand it.
Right.
But at the time you were able, like your Japanese was good enough to like talk to all your friends and stuff?
Oh, yeah. I think conversational wise, at that point, I wasn't that different from now. I think now I've kind of like figured out like the little kinks and little areas that I needed to fix. But I could get by really easily. Like, I guess like shogakusei level. So like as if anything was explained to me as an elementary school student, I would get it basically.
I see.
Yeah.
I see. And I guess like after you went back, you were like going to college. Did you think about like studying Japanese in college, or did your parents like not supportive of that?
I mean, it's a weird situation because, I grew up in the Bay Area and, tech and all these things that are very important. And so I felt like, I guess, I had to fix something that would make money. And I'm not saying that Japanese doesn't. I just felt that pressure for sure. And so I kind of didn't even consider it, to be honest. I also never really wanted to become like a translator or anything like that. It just wasn't that interesting for me. And I don't think I'd be good at it either. So I chose business because I felt like it would be cool to connect America and Japan, like in terms of business, because I just had this image that you could travel internationally with a business degree. Obviously, if I did consulting, that would be the case. But so that's kind of how Japanese played into me deciding to go to business school.
I see. Did you ever like take any like Japanese classes?
I did. Just last semester I took a Japanese literature class, and that class was all taught in Japanese, and the only people in the class were all like extremely fluent in Japanese. It's crazy because the whole class is obviously in Japanese, so we never heard each other speaking English for the entire semester. And, we had people from like Utah and like Italy and like other parts of like Berkeley. And it's really interesting to kind of just see that class filled with like Gaikokujin and then one Japanese teacher, just like, she was hard on us too. She was like not letting us off easy. She was like, I'm gonna make you guys work hard. So we read a lot of really cool short stories in Japanese, and I loved it. It was so much fun. I wasn't a huge literature person, but we read like Murakami Haruki, as well as like some other like Hoshi Shinichi and Kawabata Yasunari, like all really, really popular writers, and it was really cool.
That's really cool because like usually we hear from like people's experiences with classroom, and it's usually like it's too slow or they're not really improving, so they end up dropping it. But I guess like since it was like already at a high level, it's like more challenging probably.
Yeah, I mean, I had to take a Japanese class in community college in order to transfer to UC Berkeley, and there they only had like Japanese 3 or something, and so I was taking that class to meet my requirement, and it was so easy. I was like the top of my class, and I was like, this is so easy, and I love it. So I enjoyed it. It was still interesting.
Like a nice walk in the park. Like, give me more free credits.
I know. I was like, come on, guys. I can help anyone. I can tutor you guys. Come on.
Raising your hand for every question.
I know.
Give me that participation.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I think I was skeptical though when I first took that class. I was like, what's it gonna be like? Is it gonna be awkward? Because we're all, fanatics about Japan. Is the term is Japanophile, right? Right. And it's just gonna be kind of weird. But no, everyone was really nice.
That's great to hear. And I guess now, like, looking towards your relationship with Japan and Japanese today. So, I mean, we've obviously talked so much about like your journey up until this point with the language, kind of starting early on, and now you even had a 2-week trip to Japan as a homestay experience. But I guess how are you looking at it? Like, how many hours a day would you say you're maybe interacting with the language right now, and what are your kind of goals like looking towards the future now?
I'd say on a typical day, maybe 50% is a stretch, but I'm constantly thinking in Japanese at the same time. And in my free time, I watch a lot of Japanese YouTube. And it's gotten to a point where, especially last week, it almost felt like overload because I was listening to so much Japanese. And I also, do like coffee chats with people in like different business fields as well, like maybe startups or venture capital and stuff like that. And so I ask them questions and stuff like that, which, it's hard because a lot of words I don't necessarily know. But it's kind of crazy that even if I'm at home in California, of all places, I still have so much connection to Japan on a daily basis, essentially.
I see. And also, like, on your channel, I think you talked about how you had an experience where you were on the reverse side of a homestay where you hosted a kid or a person from Hiroshima. So what was that experience like?
It was interesting. I actually hosted a girl and her brother. So they were both in high school, I think. And they were really nice. It's just, I felt like, I was trying to give them as much of an American experience as possible. But I lived in the Bay Area. Everyone's Asian. And so it wasn't even like that, American, I guess, per se. But they seemed to enjoy it. And we made an effort to also really get them into Indian culture as well, because we make Indian food at home. So they liked that. Yeah, I mean, it was pretty good. I just felt like when you start learning Japanese, you tend to idolize a lot of things and just assume that everything's going to be perfect. Like, every person you're going to meet is going to be the coolest person ever. Like, every part of Japan is perfect, all these things. And I believed that for the first couple of years, not going to lie. But after a while, like, you really start to realize there's a lot of, like, key things that need to be improved. And I'm not saying those two kids were, like, these terrible people. No, they're really cool. I just didn't really connect with them personality-wise, and I feel like we had, like, nothing in common, so it was just kind of awkward. And they didn't speak much English, so it was hard for my family to communicate with them as well. But yeah, it's weird. My brother could communicate with them really well, even though he didn't speak Japanese. He could understand a lot for some reason. I don't know why, but yeah.
I see. And I guess, like, now, like, going towards, like, your future goals, you talked about how, like, you started a YouTube channel because, like, you were drawn to, like, creative projects. But I guess, like, now what sorts of plans do you have specifically for your YouTube channel?
Yeah, honestly, I really want to do YouTube, like, more seriously. And I have a ton of videos that are just sitting in my laptop that I haven't edited, because I've just been busy with school. But yeah, I'm originally a very creative person. I grew up drawing my whole life, and so that's kind of where the interest towards manga arose as well. And so with my YouTube channel, I really want to aim for a Japanese audience and provide them with sort of an understanding of American culture. So I wanted to film, like, vlogs with my last semester in college, as well as sort of touch on different topics as well. Like, I had one video that I was going to film today and I didn't get around to it, but kind of my experience when I first started learning Japanese, I was kind of bullied for doing it because it seemed like, otaku and, like, weeb and, like, all these terms were really more of, like, an insult sometimes as well. Like, people took pride in it, but it could also be used in another way. So I faced, like, a lot of, like, not backlash, but I had people being like, why are you studying Japanese? Like, are you trying to become Japanese? And things like that. And so I wanted to sort of talk about those topics as well in my channel. And also just, like, I filmed a video a while back asking my friends what they knew about Japan. So, like, I was just asking, like, people from totally different countries, totally different backgrounds. And yeah, I thought maybe Japanese audiences would find that interesting.
Nice. And I guess like, you also mentioned like you're graduating this semester, right? So
yeah.
What are your plans afterwards? Like, are you going to try to go to Japan?
I actually have interviewed for a Japanese company before, and it was for an internship, and I was actually supposed to intern in Japan last summer, but obviously because of COVID, it ended up not happening. But yeah, maybe it'll happen this summer. I mean, they didn't say it was canceled. They just said it was going to be at a different time. But yeah, I kind of wanted that experience to understand if I wanted to work in Japan, because
Right.
I have a lot of... I'm not exactly... I don't know how to feel about Japan's working culture. I've written papers on it, and especially, like, as a woman, too, like, it's so, like, male-dominated, too, like, the higher up you go in a company. And, yeah, it was just sort of disappointing, and so I was like, coming from an American perspective, I don't think I'm gonna match with a Japanese company, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially
I think
with
like
the kind
a
of...
traditional one might be kind of rough.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Especially, like, trading companies as well. Like, I shouldn't, like, say names, but, like, you know, like, they're known as, like, shosha, or, like, zaibatsu, which is, like, traditional Japanese companies, which are, like, insanely just... They revolve around that boss culture and, like, drinking, you know, all these things that are pretty hard mentally, I think, and physically. So I don't know if I could do anything like that. So yeah, as of now, I'm set to work in Seattle at Amazon, and I was hoping maybe like to be like, hey, can I go to the Japan office?
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
something like that. Kind of just up in the air right now, really.
I've actually heard of like a lot of people doing that. I think after like a year, they were
Oh,
able to go
seriously?
to Japan, yeah.
Oh,
from
no
Amazon.
way. Oh, that's crazy. That's good to know.
Looks like you got a 1 year time from then. You already know what time.
I know. I should just learn all my Keigo in advance and just be like, I got it.
Yeah. And I mean, you mentioned earlier about that you got to read like Japanese literature, and as well that you were a big fan of manga. So for the KoreKara listeners here, do you have any maybe content recommendations?
What? It's sad because maybe I was affected by the haters, but I stopped watching anime and mostly manga altogether. But I'd say my favorite anime, one of them was Mainichi Kasan. It's like Everyday Mom, I think, in English. And it was based on this like 4-koma manga, so like 4-panel comics. And it's so funny. Like, it's just about, you know, I guess it's slice of life if it had to fall under a category, but it's like comedy. It's really fun.
I see. All right, everyone,
Yeah.
make sure to check that out. Ananya's recommendation out here.
Yeah.
But
No, honestly,
Yeah.
I love that anime, but maybe it wasn't my favorite, but it was hilarious because you go to like Japanese families, like sometimes my friends invited me to their house or whatever, and they'd ask me like, "What's your favorite anime?" And I was like, like Mainichi Kasan," and everyone would be like, "What?" And then their mom, like it's always the mom who's like, "I know that." It's just like hilarious.
they like relate to it on like another level.
Yeah, it's how I win brownie points with anyone's mom. It's just how I mention it.
Yeah, it's like see how many brownie points you can accumulate at this point just by constantly going for that recommendation.
I know, it's just become the only one I give out to people now.
Yeah, I mean that was probably the first time I've ever heard that as a recommendation too. So I mean,
Yeah, go binge that.
This is the next binge one for sure. We gotta go get some brownie points in here too.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's actually sad. Like my brother ended up falling in love with anime, so now he gives me recommendations, and he's like way more. He knows his stuff. Like I honestly don't know anymore.
Ananya, you can't let him do you like that.
I know he's gonna start
Korean
learning
over
Japanese. Gonna replace me.
Not like
Oh god.
this.
3 years later, he's on the KoreKara podcast, and I'm just gonna be crying.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back. Today we're here with Ananya's brother.
What's she doing now? I swear, that'd be crazy.
Yeah, I mean, if he does end up learning Japanese, and that does happen 3 years down the line, he is more than welcome to come on the podcast.
No, I just steal his position. I just like show up on the webcam suddenly instead.
Hey, it's me,
It's
the
just a
brother.
bait.
I know, I'm just gonna be like, no.
You're not taking my spot on the KoreKara podcast.
Exactly.
Yeah, definitely respectable. The position at KoreKara, that's a big one. There's positions all across for different companies, but when it comes to the KoreKara podcast, can't give that one up. But
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah. But everyone, you guys should go check out my Nichikasan just because of getting those brownie points. You know you want it. But on that note, I think this is a good time to wrap up the podcast here. And it was so fun talking to you today, Ananya. It was an incredible conversation. Really enjoyed learning more about your story with Japan and Japanese. And I mean, your Japanese is amazing. We just have to go put that out there. But yeah, where can our listeners find you?
Yeah, so I do YouTube and Twitter mainly right now. My YouTube channel doesn't have a name. I honestly don't know. It's my name. So if you look up my name in hiragana, or no, katakana, or English, it should pop up.
Mm-hmm.
You just type in Nihongo next to it. It should pop up. But on Twitter, I'm Hi Ananya. I post a lot of like short videos on it in English and Japanese. So it helps people who are learning the language. So that's kind of what I've been doing a lot of the time recently.
I see. And we will have the links to that in the description, of course. But at the end of these, we always like to have a little message to the KoreKara listeners. Can be anything, a fun little message, Japanese proverb, advice, you know it. So Ananya, today, what is your message to the KoreKara listeners?
Yeah, so I have a Japanese proverb motto prepared that I really love, and it's always been my line. You know how line has like your picture and like a little piece of text? I always use it for that. It's ungai soten. So that's the proverb, and it essentially means, like, if you look at the kanji, it's like when you're in the clouds or just like a really like dark place, you have to get out of it and like slowly make your way out of it to see like ten, so like heaven or like, you know, clouds, really pretty. And it just means like, you know, in life you're gonna be hit with a lot of obstacles, but how you get out of it is just like work towards it, keep going, get up that mountain, and then you'll see the beautiful sky. So that's the same thing for Japanese learning. So that is my message.
Wow. I mean, first of all, I have to say that's probably the most preparation we've ever had for one of these. You're already at the top. You're already
all right. That's what I'm aiming for here.
Let's go. But yeah, that is really beautiful. Guys, take that into consideration when learning Japanese or anything. Japanese proverbs are coming. We need more of those in the KoreKara messages.
Yeah,
right,
we'll make it a requirement. Like, what is your favorite Japanese proverb?
Just like you have to look it up like before, like it's a requirement now. Yeah. But
you guys said proverbs, so I was instantly like, okay, I know it. It's this one. I was like, I don't care what they say. I'm just gonna tell them this one.
It has to be at that point.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, really fun episode, Ananya. Thank you so much for coming on once again. It was an absolute pleasure. We're gonna go call it right here. We'll catch you on the next one, guys. Peace.
Peace.
Bye.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to the end of the podcast. I just want to thank our patron, Sad Boy, Isaac71, Miku, Jack, H90, Boy No Eyebrow 4, and Light. So if you guys want to support the podcast, help check out our Patreon. It would really help us out a lot. But hope you guys enjoy the podcast, and see you guys in the next one. Peace.